Hi everyone, welcome to this first video of this course Terraform with Azure. In this video, we are going to learn the following. So we will start by understanding how organization used to procure infrastructure when they had on-premise data centers and how it has evolved over time when organization has started working on cloud, whether it is a private cloud or public cloud. And we will also discuss how this provisioning works now using automation, using tools like infrastructure as code tools like Terraform. Next, we will also discuss what are the challenges organization face working with manual provisioning of infrastructure, and then we will talk about how automation solve these challenges. So let us first understand how the organizations used to provision infrastructure when it was on premise. So think in this way, whenever business owners comes with some idea, it could be a feature idea or it could be an improvement in the existing features or application, or it could be just some non-functional requirements, say they have to increase the traffic or they're expecting the traffic to increase from, let's say, 100k users per month to 1 million users per month. Whenever such requirement comes, the business owners share it with business analyst or the product owners. Now, the business analyst and product owners will come up with the plan and will share it with the team, which also has, let's say, the solution architects. Now, the team or the solution architect comes together and understand the requirement. Based on the requirement, if there is a need to procure more infrastructure, say for example, uh, the business owner is expecting to increase the traffic from, let's say, 100k to 1 million, so obviously you'll need more infrastructure to support this much traffic. You will need more virtual machine to run the servers, or you'll need more database to store the data and so on. So the team or the solution architects will share this requirement to procurement team. Now procurement team, based on the request got from the team, and will discuss it with the business and will come up with the budget and all, and will share it with the infrastructure team. Now infrastructure team can verify if the new requirement can be taken care with the existing physical servers, or they might need to buy more physical servers, and then obviously they'll raise the request to buy more infrastructure. Once those physical servers are procured, shipped to the data centers, then they will provision more virtual machines, databases, networks, and so on. Now, if you notice in this whole journey, there are a lot of manual interventions. Like if you talk about solution architect sharing the requirement with the procurement team, obviously there is some time delay. Procurement team, based on the approvals, they'll share it to the infrastructure team. Now infrastructure team, based on the availability of the infrastructure or the physical servers, they will again share it with the team which will actually provision the infrastructure. Since a lot of manual interventions is there, it all these process are time consuming, right? So it will take time to get new physical server, it will take time to um, connect to it to the network or provision virtual machines and so on, right? And this was one of the reasons that a lot of organizations started adopting cloud. Even in some cases it was private cloud, but in most cases it was public cloud. So let's say the organization has adopted an Azure cloud. How provisioning looks like now? So if you have adopted an Azure cloud, all you have to do is log in to the Azure portal, which is portal.azure.com. You will log in, you will see all these different services. Okay, I want to provision, let's say, a virtual machine and a storage. I will click on virtual machine, there will be a form, I'll fill up the form that okay, what region I want to deploy my virtual machine, what is the configuration of that virtual machine, and so on. I'll fill up all the details and then I provision, right? So the whole time it will take to provision a virtual machine if all the configurations are known is probably, let's say, 5 minutes. So you can see how the provisioning of infrastructure has evolved. Obviously, the steps required to get the approvals on budgets and everything still there, but the time to provision the infrastructure has reduced drastically. Now, but this comes up with its own challenges, specifically when you are provisioning these infrastructures manually. So let's talk about some of the challenges which we face when we provision infrastructures manually. Okay, so here are the points. I'll talk about all the 6 points one by one. So let's talk about not repeatable. See, whenever you ask something like to do, like whenever you ask some human to do something, first thing, always remember, it's not repeatable, it's not scalable, and it's not consistent. I'll tell you why. See, we are human. We are not trained to do the same thing the same way, right? So if you ask me to do something 100 times, there is no guarantee that I'll do it all 100 times the same way. Yes, there are chances, high chances, but there is no guarantee. Why? Because we are not trained to do the same thing again and again. That's the job of a robot, or that's the job of a machine or a code, right? So it's not repeatable because we humans can make mistake. It's not scalable because we get tired, right? We are limited. It's not consistent. As I said, there is no guarantee that we will always do the same thing the same way, right? So whenever in the world you're talking about anything which human has to do, these three things will always come. It's not repeatable, it's not scalable, and it's not consistent. Then let's talk about documentation. See, when you ask something to do, like you ask a human to do something, we cannot remember everything. So we rely on documentation. So if, let's say, there is a very complex infrastructure, you have, let's say, 10 different virtual machines, a few databases, an application gateway, a load balancer, and so on. So as human, I cannot remember all the configuration. So obviously I have to refer some documentation, right? So what you will do, you will open the documentation, read it, and then do it. So we have to maintain the documentation. If there is something updated in the infrastructure, you have to also update your documentation. That is a big challenge, right? Next, you need an expert to provision infrastructure. Yes, even if you have a documentation, you cannot ask somebody without any cloud knowledge to do it, right? Because you need an expert to understand what is application gateway, to understand what is load balancer, to understand how database work. Last, auditing. Very important, and in fact one of the most important reasons that you should not do manual provisioning is that auditing is very difficult. How do we know we have performed all the steps, right? So it is very challenging, because if, let's say, there is something which is not working, then what you have to do is you will go back to each and every infrastructure, see how it is configured, and all of them can be at 100 different places. So auditing your process is very challenging, right? There is no one centralized place where everything is logged. No, that is not there when you are doing it manually. And all these challenges are solved through automation. Now, how do you do it through automation? Obviously, you'll write some scripts. Now, when you're writing scripts, always remember these three things. They are repeatable, they are scalable, and you always get consistent results, because scripts are meant to be repeated. Once you have written a script, you can just change a few configurations and run it multiple times. So let's say you have written a script to provision a virtual machine, you can run it 10 times to provision 10 different virtual machines. That's how they are repeatable as well as scalable. From 1 to 10, from 10 to 100, you can do it. You always get consistent deployment. How? If you ask a machine to do something the same way, even if you run it 10 times, they'll exactly perform the same steps as written, right? So you always get the consistent deployments. They don't use their brain. Next, provisioning scripts as is acts like a document. Okay, so provisioning scripts acts like a documentation. What does it mean? It means that you don't have to separately maintain any documentation. Your script is a documentation. It has each and every step written. Right? Next, provisioning infrastructure is all automated and can be scheduled. What does it mean? Remember, we discussed that we need an expert to provision an infrastructure when you're doing it manually. But when you're doing it through automation, obviously when you're writing the scripts, you need an expert. But once that script is written, it's stable, you can just schedule it every few hours, or you can make it part of your pipelines. So they can be provisioned through automation and through scheduling. Last very important point, when you're doing automation, it's beauty of automation that you can log everything at one place. So the auditing is very easy. If let's say something is not working for me, let's say my application gateway is not behaving the way it should, the first thing I'll do is I'll go and check the logs of my tool or my script, and I'll see what is configured in my logs, and I can debug easily. So that is how automation solves all these challenges which we have discussed from manual provisioning of infrastructure. So always remember, automated provisioning is repeatable, scalable, you get consistent deployment, consistent result always. You don't need any separate documentation because your provisioning script behave like a documentation, and you don't need an expert to run it. Obviously you need an expert to develop it, but not to run it. And it can be scheduled as per your wish. You want to run it every Wednesday 9 o'clock, go ahead and do it. You can run it every Friday 3 o'clock, go ahead and do it. You want to run whenever your team is ready, you can do it. Last but not the least, the auditing is very easy when you do it through automation. That's all for this video. In this video we discuss about the journey, how we used to provision infrastructure when we used to work as say on-premise data centers. Then we discuss how we have adopted provisioning of infrastructure when we are working in private or public cloud. Then we also discussed what are the challenges with manual provisioning of infrastructure, and we discussed automated provisioning. In the next video, we are going to talk about infrastructure as code, which will start your automation journey. Thank you.